So I've been in Bali the last 30 days, staying in a wide variety of budget accommodation. This video is my final picks of what was awful and what was great. I am ranking all 8 places that I stayed. I spread out my time across the island. I didn't get to see all of it. I didn't go all the places I wanted to go. I guess I'll have to come back, but I really tried to get to know the places where I was at and see what they offered. And as far as accommodation, I have learned some things about where to stay in Bali. The cheapest place I stayed averaged $2.49 a night. The most expensive place I stayed averaged $31.97 a night. That is kind of the range of budget accommodation in Bali. I did not stay in any hostels. So the cheapest way to travel and stay places, the cheapest form of accommodation is definitely a hostel. A lot of times those are dorms where there's like a bunch of bunk beds, a bunch of individual beds, and you're sleeping in the same room as like 4 to 16 other people. Sometimes hostels will have like private one rooms as well, and there are some pros to staying in hostels. Like there's a huge sense of community. Normally people are hanging out, you get to know people, you get to befriend people. Here in Bali I've seen like entrepreneur hostels, like people trying to move here and doing like business stuff. It is like potentially a good way to network or to meet people, especially if you're planning on like moving to Bali, or if you're a really social person and you want to be in one of those environments and don't care about your personal space. I did not stay in hostels. I stuck to guest houses, homestays, and hotels and resorts. So a homestay is where you are in like a hotel style room, but it's attached usually to someone's home. Not like in their home, but like next to their home on their property somewhere. In Bali, it is nice all year round. So people don't have like indoor hallways, it's all outdoor. And because tourism is such a big industry here, homes are built to have like accommodation next to the home so that the owner can like live there and then also rent out these rooms. A guest house is normally pretty similar. Sometimes I would say the main difference is my expectation with a guest house is that the owner does not live on site, whereas in a homestay I would expect the owner probably lives on site. In both of these options, you may or may not get breakfast included. I got breakfast included some places, and it was pretty basic, but really good in the case of banana pancakes. And in other places, it just wasn't a thing. At a homestay or a guest house, you don't get your room cleaned, you don't get your bed remade, you don't get towels switched when you stay there, unless you stay in the same place for a long time. I stayed in one a week and a half, and in that case, after a week, they changed my sheets and towels. So if you stay longer, you'll get things changed, but if you're only there a few days, you don't get the services that a hotel offers because it's a homestay or a guest house, and that means hands off. It's just a different style of hospitality. So if you end up going to Bali and booking a homestay or a guest house, don't expect someone to be on site to answer all your questions. Don't expect people to be able to come to your room and help you if you're having an issue. Don't expect the same level of service that you would at a hotel because it's a type of accommodation, but it is not a hotel. I also stayed in hotels. There is a hotel chain here called Oyo, and they're in Asia, a lot of Asia. They're like a super budget hotel. I knew about them when I started researching accommodation in Bali, and they have certain like brands within their brand that are supposed to be nicer and held to a higher quality, but their cheap brands are like not good. I accidentally booked one of those. My first night I booked one of those and it was listed under a different name that was the name of a hotel nearby, but then they like added the word hotel onto it, so technically it was a different name, but it was actually the name of a nice hotel nearby, and they took it to try and make people think it was that hotel. That is number 8 on my list of favorite places I've stayed in Bali. This is the only one that was like a real bomb, total mess. So I paid $19.82 for 2 nights at this hotel that was supposed to be like not a crappy hotel. And so that is an average of $9.91 a night, which does not sound like much, but this is not the cheapest hotel that I booked, and the cheaper ones honestly were nicer. So this hotel was an absolute nightmare. I show up after dark in my taxi coming from the airport. I arrive, there's just like a lot of people sitting around the lobby, and it's just got like a bad vibe. And I walk in and the manager walks up to me and asks my name, looks at my reservation and says, "Oh, you didn't pay enough money. We don't have a room for you." I was like, this is a non-refundable reservation. I have a room booked here. And he was like, the only kind of room that we have available doesn't have air conditioning. It's just a room. I was like, on my reservation, it says there is air conditioning in this room. And he was like, no, you didn't pay enough money. We don't have any rooms with air conditioning. You should just cancel it. And so I log in to try to cancel it, but of course it's not refundable, and my internet wasn't working because the Wi-Fi there sucked. And at this point I did not know this was an OYO. I had just walked in, and I figured it out then because there were signs in the lobby. But anyways, I ended up, because my internet wouldn't work, I couldn't book somewhere else. My phone still hadn't realized that I was in Bali, so my phone wasn't working. And so I ended up saying, oh, I'll just stay one night because I can't log online to book somewhere else. It was dark outside. I couldn't walk outside and book somewhere else. And he was like, oh, just one night? Okay. And so they charged me for 2 nights because it was non-refundable and I couldn't get it back. And they put me in a room with air conditioning because I paid enough. Because they had them. They just weren't going to give them to me. Not that that made that hotel experience any better, because there were cockroaches, there were bed bugs, it was dirty, it was disgusting. My camera makes it look nicer than it is. It kind of erases some of the dirt. That air conditioning is barely on. It was not the hotel that I thought I was booking. It was an OYO that used the name of a nearby nice hotel to try and trap people. Number 8, the OYO. I do not recommend staying there. The rest of my hotels and homestays were actually not that bad. And I think overall I did pretty good, and having like a horrible start was horrible, but afterwards it like went up very quick. So number 7 on my list it was labeled as a cottage. It was in Ubud, and I really liked the location because it was out of the way on this ravine with like this jungle in the back, and I had this amazing porch. I felt like a princess. It was so beautiful. It's already better than yesterday's. Look at that. Let's check the bathroom. Okay, a little moldy in the corner. Not like super clean. Like the scenery, and like it had a pool. It was really cute. It came with breakfast. For that one, I paid $14.52 for one night. All of these numbers are including taxes and fees. The reason why it's 7th on my list was because everything in the room was really old, and like that's fine, but I mean it was just really old, and the bathroom was not clean. But like for Asia, you kind of have to lower your standards because they just don't have the same cleanliness standards. And in places that are damp, it was like a damp place. It didn't feel damp in the room. It was kind of a damp bathroom. You know, you kind of expect it to look like a damp bathroom. And so the bathroom was a bit grim, but everything worked. I had hot water. You know, it worked. It was fine. And the balcony was amazing. It's number 7 on my list. 6th on my list is a cute little homestay I stayed at in Amed. It was actually adorable. It was tucked behind this little restaurant and dive center. It was a homestay, but the people who ran it did not live on site. I booked it originally for 2 weeks and I only ended up staying a week and a half. I took this room that had 2 bunk beds. I was the only one in the room, and I had my own private bathroom, which was an outdoor bathroom. A lot of bathrooms here are outdoor bathrooms. I have mixed feelings about them. I like the idea, but I don't like the bugs. There were so many bugs. I understand why, but this is the one that I paid $2.49 a night for. So what you're gonna say? I was impressed with the cleanliness. I just did not like the bugs. There were bugs everywhere. There were ants everywhere. There were mosquitoes everywhere. Like, it was a battle. I had really loud neighbors, which wasn't their fault, but it was still a thing that I had to deal with staying there. So it's number 6. Number 5. I stayed at a hotel in Batu Belong, Changu, which is like a very commercial built up area with tons of hotels, tons of huge restaurants. Like, I think it's probably a party area, although I don't party. I stayed in a hotel and I paid $31.97 a night. It was fine. I think that I knew that this was on the higher end of what I was spending as far as budget accommodation, and it definitely had the amenities of a hotel. It had a front desk where people were all the time. It had a rooftop restaurant. It had like a coffee shop in it. It had daily cleaning. So like overall it was good. I would say that the cleanliness, especially at the bathroom, was not my favorite thing. Like, especially the shower is like, they must not even try to like clean the mold out of the showers. And it was fine. I would say it was like a pretty basic hotel. It was cutely decorated, I guess. But in the grand scheme of being in Bali, I think location definitely made it the price that it was. And I think when you stay in a hotel here, it is more expensive because they are hiring all of these hotel workers that places like homestays and guest houses don't have, which is why they're cheaper. I just wasn't that impressed with it. The one day I wanted to use the pool was closed all day without warning, and it was like, great. Something I found with hotels and accommodation in Bali is if you are looking for a place that has a certain amenity, until you get to a certain price point, which is way above $30 a night, there is really no way to guarantee that they will actually have that amenity available. Sometimes they have it on site, but then like you can't use it, or like they used to have it but it's broken, or like they don't really have it but it says they have it. And so for me, being here, I've had trouble wanting to pay for a nicer place that supposedly has an amenity that I want, when in reality I might be paying more, show up, and then they're like, oh sorry, we don't have that. Number 4, this was a homestay in Ubud, and I stayed here about a week. I paid an average of $8.32 a night. And this room did not have air conditioning. It did have a fan. It didn't have hot water. It only had cold water. So no air conditioning, no hot water, but it did come with breakfast. I actually liked this homestay a lot more than I thought I would. It was in central Ubud. It was a really good location for getting anywhere I wanted to go. It was so close to things. I had this amazing balcony. Would I book it again? Like, if I was trying to stay a while in budget accommodation, I would book it again. What I didn't like about it was that, like, the room next to me had people stay. It also, like, was not soundproof at all. I mean, it's funny because looking for accommodation online, you see when people advertise their rooms as soundproof because so many people coming to visit Bali complain about that, I'm sure. Third on the list is a cute little guest house in Changu. It's run by this nice family who did not speak a lot of English, but that was okay. The room was clean. It was pretty clean. I mean, like, the shower could have been a little better, but it was clean. And the room was spacious, and it had air conditioning, it had a TV. It was right on a main road in Barawa, which is a neighborhood in Changu, and the location was great. Like, the bedding and stuff was a little bit outdated, but it was mostly clean, so that's what you get. For that one, I paid $16.60 a night. Number 2 on the list is another guest house in Changu. a different area, still in Barala actually, but I went and stayed a bunch of other places and then went back. And I really liked this guest house. The people who ran it were so sweet. It was so clean. All right, I got a nice little view in this one. This is another homestay. It's got air conditioning. There's no door on this bathroom, which I don't mind, but and it's got a little desk. The room was really nice. It was really basic, but that's what you get in a guest house. And the people who ran it were really nice. The only thing I will say is that it had a pool. It was a small pool, but it had a pool, but you couldn't really swim in the pool because the pool was in the little courtyard that you walk into the house, or like the guest house area, and like the owner's little store was next to it. There was really no way to actually use the pool. And my favorite number one is the one that I'm sitting in right now. It is the last one in this whole trip. It's called Resort. I mean, I don't actually know if it's like an actual resort or if they just use that because it's a cute name. Similar to the hotel that I stayed, like the actual hotel that I stayed in. Like, it has front desk, it has cleaning service. It's actually oceanfront, which is why I picked it. I wanted to be right on the beach. It's really clean. Its decor is pretty modern. Maybe not like the fanciest, but I mean, it's nice. I've got like beautiful sliding doors that let in so much natural light. The bathroom is clean. I paid $30.97 for this one, which is $1 less a night than the other hotel in Changu that I booked, but this is definitely nicer. After all of the hotels, guest houses, and homestays I have stayed in since being here, the cleanliness level of this room is a lot better than a lot of them. So when in Asia, be prepared to lower your expectations a little bit of what counts as clean, what counts as nice, what counts as included. So that is my list of places that I stayed in Bali, budget accommodation. Bali is a really cheap place to come and to stay, and honestly, like, the most I paid was $31.97 after taxes and fees, which is inexpensive for a hotel in American standards and for a lot of places. There are definitely ways to do Bali cheaper. There are definitely ways to do Bali more expensive. Accommodation is a huge cost when you're traveling, and if you want to pinch your budget a little bit more or cut your costs, picking more budget-friendly accommodation is a great way to do that. There are cheaper ways to do it than I did it, but there are also more expensive ways to do it than I did it. But this video has been my experience staying in all sorts of budget-friendly-ish accommodation in Bali. So if you're going to Bali on a budget, keep these things in mind about where you stay. It's totally possible to do Bali for cheap and still have a good time and still not stay in horrible places. You just have to know what you're looking for and also what to expect. These are my thoughts on accommodation in Bali. Thanks for hanging out with me. See you in the next one.